Hi, folks, and welcome to another Real and Raw conversation. Today, we are diving into a topic that affects so many men out there, including myself to an extent, but rarely gets spoken about openly: the midlife crisis. So, we're going to answer a couple of questions here. We'll try to figure it out how much of that is a myth and how much of that is reality, and how can men take control of their health and well being during this stage of life. For that purpose, I'm joined by a very special guest. We're just trying to find her way, but she'll be with us 100%. Don't worry.
I'm here.
Anne Marie McIlwraith. She's a psychotherapist, a men's health advocate, an author, and an entrepreneur. And she has spent years, a good few years, helping men navigating these changes. So before we get started, as well says Anna Maria is getting started, make sure to press that subscribe button below. Give us a like, and don't forget to share this stream with anyone who might benefit from the conversation. We also want the podcast to be interactive, so jump into the chat box and drop your questions or comments as we go along. And here's a question for you already in the chat that we will address later as we approach the topic. What was your experience with midlife changes? So drop your thoughts below, and we'll circle back as we arrive to that theme. So yeah, let's get into it. Anne Marie, it's a great pleasure to have you here. I'm delighted. We have been talking for a while too, and I'm already surrendering to your Cork accent and charm. So
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invite to share information about the Manopause. It's an area where there really hasn't been a lot of conversation. As a woman, I've obviously been aware of the female menopause and the perimenopause and all that goes with it. Having worked in HR for quite a long time, I was very much aware of the difference between the guys' experience and the ladies' experience as they approached the whole midlife area of their lives. Now, I moved out of HR a number of years ago, but it really fired up my interest in men's health. And I have a men's salon, so we offer things like we're hair, scalp and wig clinic. We offer we're male hairstylists as opposed to being barbers, even though we've got the full suite of barbering skills as well. And it's through those conversations with men that I've discovered that many of them themselves don't even know that the male menopause, which is also called andropause, is a factor that has serious implications for them, for their mental health, for their physical health, their emotional health, but also that triggers into their personal lives, their relationships with their friends, with their partners, and even in the workplace.
yeah, it seems that there is a stigma around the male sphere to talk about emotions, things that are not clear. Lads, they tend to hesitate to approach other lads because they might be seen as weak, and then they just keep that on their chest, and God knows what are the consequences. What would be your encouragement for someone to open up and be frank with their feelings?
Well, I think that the sad thing really is that we quite often hear people referring to, oh, he's going through the midlife crisis. And that tends to take the form of maybe going away with other women or buying strange cars or taking up very different activities to what they might otherwise have been used to. And that actually is the male menopause. And that could be based on their hormones changing, and that has a kind of a knock-on effect. So while it's jokingly referred to, it's not in reality being dealt with. A very simple way to find out if you're going through the male menopause, I suppose from a medical perspective, is just to have a blood test. It really is that simple, just to have a blood test. And from that blood test, you will know whether, the testosterone levels have started to fall off, which can explain then a lot of the different symptoms that guys, there's physical symptoms as well as emotional, psychological, and other ones that factor into this. So my first piece of advice to any guy that's questioning, maybe they feel like they're working through a fog, or maybe they're a little bit more irritable than what they might have been before. They're a little bit more moody. They have kind of less tolerance of anything that's going on around them. And they're reaching that point in their lives where they might feel that they haven't reached where they had hoped to reach. And that psychologically has a massive mental health issue with them. So my very first advice is the first medical protocol: have an annual blood test, not just, of course, for the menopause and the hormones, but also to check for something simple like your PSA level, to make sure you're not having prostate cancer. There's a lot more to a blood test. And that's also extremely important. So just by, once you have that information, and I actually have a fact sheet that I'm quite willing to share if somebody wants to have information like that, on how to go to the doctor, and what that conversation should look like, and what to do when you get the results, and what those results actually mean. They can be treated then so simply, either through diet, exercise, a combination of those. And if the medical expert feels that it's appropriate, there's HRT, or you can look at testosterone. So there is help out there. And it's just about knowing that it is there, first of all, and then being able to ask for that help. Emotional help, psychological help, going to a psychotherapist or going to a counselor, and being able to have that conversation around what you're actually experiencing, because everybody might experience it slightly differently. And it's just a period of time to pass through. You reach the other side, and we call it the next chapter. Yeah. And it's a wonderful place to be, because you walk into your own, as they say, you step into yourself. So once and there is a kind of almost like a grieving period, that you're leaving your youth behind, but you're walking into your wisdom, and what you have of value to offer is enormous. The experience, the skills that you have, the support you can give to younger men and to younger members of the family. It's like becoming the wise old person in the patriarch. And that's hugely valuable to society.
Is it fair to say that period of a man's life is a period of reinvention, that you're letting go your previous self and embracing the new one?
Oh, totally. Insofar as you may not be physically as capable as you were when you were 20. Let's face it, not many of us are. However, just because you're not as physically capable doesn't mean you're not going to carry forward your experience, your knowledge, your patience, your structures, your processes, your procedures, your life learned skills. And they're the ones you can't take from a book. They're ones you can't take off the internet. It's not ones that, they're very personal to each person. And those life lessons are the ones that add value to our society.
Yeah, you mentioned one thing that recalls a video I watched on the internet, I think a couple of months back. So there was an American doctor, which I can't remember the name, but he's very famous. He goes on, on all these famous podcasts, and he is probably in his 50s, and he was talking to a lad who's probably, I don't know, I'd say late 20s or early 20s. So there is a generation or two generations gap between them. And he was saying that he can have the same mental strength or physical strength as the young lad if he does the right thing, which is a good diet and exercise, because he is aware of his decay, but there is a way to fight what's going on with him, which is having a routine. Does that resonate with what you just mentioned?
Oh, of course. If, once we know what's going on and you start to adjust your diet. So you've simple things like your energy levels might be dropping. You might find, this is one where some guys, they refer to a guy as having a beer belly. It mightn't even be a beer belly. It might very well be a hormonal belly. So by assisting with the hormones, you can actually help to shift things like having a beer belly. Talking to a PE instructor or a personal trainer can give a very personal advice on what the best exercise is, taking into account the bodily changes, because each of us change differently. And if you've had injuries in the past, so if you've been a sports person in the past, you may be carrying injuries into your middle life and your later life. And a PE instructor will actually help you to minimize any risk that you might have when they develop a program for you. So exercise, one of the very simplest exercises that we can all do, doesn't cost anything, is just to go out and walk.
Yeah.
We can look at the whole mental health side of it while we're out walking, look at mindful walking, being mindful about your surroundings. And when you're being mindful, it actually can help the brain to slow down, and you take a breath, because if you're being mindful, you can't be worrying at the same time. You can't do both things at the same time. So, even those simple
stop
things.
you there, if you don't mind. What do you mean by being mindful? Because it's a very wide concept. So, is it about being calibrated, being aware? What is it exactly?
It's about being in the moment. So, if I'm having a mindful walk, it could be depending on where I'm walking. So, if I'm walking close to a beach, it might be what I'm smelling, it might be the likes of the seaweed or the sea air. If the feeling of the salt on my skin, the smells of the surrounding countryside. It might be taking into account what shoes I'm wearing and what my footfall is going to be like. So whether I'm on sand, or if I'm on the ground, or concrete, or grass, it's being aware of the now. So when you're aware of the now and you're only concentrating on the now, nothing else, there's no space for anything else. And that's what actually gives can decompress the whole system.
Yeah. That really resembles to a couple of situations I had in my life, because I think that the occasions I did better was when I was not distracted or worried or thinking about something that was not happening in front of my face. So I could experience things because I was 100% there. So I was able to provide the right response or execute the proper course of action. And I took advantage of that, let's say, in a positive way. Not only me, but whoever was on my table. So I think there's a huge advantage, like to have your feet on the ground and your chin up. If that makes sense.
Completely. And it's a wonderful way of, first of all, you're getting exercise, you're helping your mental health, you're improving your oxygen levels, which is also good for the body. You're doing a bit of exercise. And they're all small things. They also help with your whole sleep hygiene. So what I mean by sleep hygiene is that if you're taking a walk in an evening and you're allowing your brain to decompress from the stresses and strains of the day, and there might be different emotional turmoils, whether you're at work and you've stuff going on with your work colleagues, you might not, when you're going through the menopause, you might find it a little bit more challenging to reach your KPIs, your key performance indicators. The personal relationships at work might be changing, the dynamic changes. As you get older, you might feel, that you're being overlooked or passed by in terms of being promoted or being given opportunities. So there's a lot of things at play at this particular period of time. So the key important things are to look after, make sure that you can find space for yourself. And I know you'd sent something to me, and it actually triggered very significantly, is, being in a men's clinic or a men's salon, or even in a barber shop. That time when you're having your hair done, if you're going to a really good stylist, you'll have your hair washed, you'll have your hair, beard, maybe facial hair styling, maybe a hot towel shave. It allows that time for your body literally to do nothing but enjoy an experience that has nothing else to do. And it would be really valuable if we could educate even the men's sheds, the men's clubs, the barbers, and how to become aware of when guys are suffering stress, or what are those trigger points, and to open that conversation to take away the stigma around menopause. The same in the workplace. There should be programs for men, to educate them about, first of all, what menopause is, how to recognize if they're going through menopause. And then there should be systems in place through the employee assistance programs, again, to support men. They're being put in place for women, and they're not that I have been aware, not being put in place for men. Now, that's completely contrary to all of the equality legislation, and guys are being left on the sidelines. So I suppose that's where I want this to be addressed. It's 50% of our population. I'm not saying that the menopause and the supports for women are good enough. They're not. They're definitely not. But as bad as they are, at least there are some there. There's nothing for men, and that's not right.
Is there any reason why men are being neglected? Is it about this whole narrative that men have been in power, so they were having a good time, and now they can just be on the shadow, or it's just a coincidence?
I think it's kind of a combination of different things. I think, first of all, the stigma around men acknowledging and recognizing and embracing the fact that they're going through this period of time in their lives and not addressing it is probably the biggest issue. But once you've got that in place, then the fact that the HR departments are not embracing that and bringing it into the whole system of learning and system of support is, again, relating to the fact that it's not an issue that has been spoken about. So there's a lack of awareness of what it actually is, what you can do, and what supports can be put in place to address it.
Yeah. Just going back to the salon experience, actually, I want to share that what tends to happen to me when I'm in a salon, and I really enjoy it because first, of course, I'm waiting for my turn. Say, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Sometimes it's quicker because I tend to go during the day when most people are working. But let's say the average is 10 minutes, so I'm on my phone like everyone else, no?
Yeah.
But the moment that I'm getting my hair done, I'm not on my phone anymore. So and it's one of the rare moments where the phone is not in my hands and I'm doing something else that is not related to technology. And there is someone around me looking after my hair. Typically, we talk to each other. Some barbers are more outgoing than others. So with some I talk for the whole time, with some I talk for 10%. And if he's not that talkative, it's just myself in front of the mirror. So I'm totally exposed. And there's no way around. Like, I cannot hide from myself because I'm in front of me and there is no phone, there is no distraction, there is no place to go except where I am. And I really enjoy it because it's a bit like being on the shower, that reality is kicking in and I need to deal with it. So yeah, I love it.
It's powerful when you think it's the one time of, I don't know how frequently you would go to your hairstylist or your barber, but it's the one time where you actually do get to sit down and you're disconnected. It's all about you. So you can't answer the phone, you're not answering the emails, you're not, like, we've become as a society one that's used to being immediately responding to other people's demands and needs of us. So when you're in the chair and you can't do that, it's actually quite liberating because it's almost, you've permission to relax, you've permission, and you're allowed to take care of yourself. And what's very important as well, as guys get more mature and their families become a bit more mature, and unfortunately, we do find that a lot of our, people will pass on and die. And for a lot of the older gentlemen, it may be the only time that they have physical human touch. And as a species, we very much need to be recognized, to be heard, to be listened to be validated. And all of us need human touch. It's actually what makes or breaks us at the end of the day. So it might be that the only time that that gentleman has that human voice and that human touch, and that's hugely important. So to build on that then if we can actually provide more education in those environments, and like we can recognize things like guys are getting hot flushes, maybe they're losing their hair, maybe they're starting to put on weight, maybe there's a little bit of emotional disconnect going on, or they might be quite sad or quite angry, which are all very normal emotions. Once you're trained and you recognize those triggers, it's easy then to help somebody, to put them into perspective so they're not overwhelming. And it's like, oh, you're feeling like that? Yeah, I know a guy now that did that. And you know what he did? This is what he did. Or have you thought about going to the doctor and having a chat with him about, if you're getting up 5 times during the night to go for a pee, maybe there's something that they can do to actually help to alleviate that for you. Or if you're suffering from hot flushes, do you know that you could actually put a cold compress on your head and that actually cool you down faster than anywhere else? Or even putting something cold at the back of your neck helps to cool everything down. Again, small tips with a bit of knowledge can change somebody's life immeasurably, because something that's small to somebody else, because you've never suffered from it, can be huge to the person going through it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value on those insights, and hopefully people out there are taking notes, because it can change your life, and then sometimes it can even save your life or someone's life. So it should be taken in consideration very, very, very seriously. I think here not only in Ireland, but there is a taboo about opening up about what's going on with you. People are very talkative and outgoing and all that. We all know that, and I'm delighted with this. But when it comes to private matters, it seems that especially Irish men are very reserved. So you just say, "Yeah, I'm grand. Same shit, different day," but they don't really get into what's going on. And like me as a Portuguese, we're not like that. Sometimes we even throw too much on someone's plate. Why do you think is that from a cultural perspective?
Personally, I think it's from a lack of education and a lack of normalizing normal bodily functions, normal stresses and strains that take place in everybody's life. I provide a program called Empower Youth, where I actually go to schools and I talk to children, young adults and teens, about their personal hygiene, about emotional health, physical health. We talk about mental health. We talk about cancer awareness. And I actually, talk to them. For the guys, I'll talk to them about menopause, and for the girls, I talk about menopause. And it's a case of many of them never have heard anything about this before. There really needs to be a campaign to create awareness around what menopause is. When does it happen? How do you know if you're actually going through menopause? Some people will go through it without actually even acknowledging or recognizing, because they just flow through. And some people really do suffer. They could, there's all sorts of different intensities of how people respond, whether it's mood swings, confidence being lost. And then you're factoring in other elements that also impact on it. So if you with a partner who's going through the menopause and you're going through the menopause, we have noticed and it is recognized that there is a period of time where a lot of couples separate. So the children are getting older. The stresses and strains might still be there. Different ones kind of change. Maybe the mortgage now is nearly paid off, but there's other factors coming into it. So if you're both transitioning at the same time, and you're going through your menopause and your partner is going through the menopause, you're not having that conversation because she doesn't know what menopause is. You know that she's going through menopause, but you don't really know what that is either. And that communication starts to break down. And then you combine that with being in the workplace. So depending on what your career path might have been, some people are quite happy where they are. Some people might have had goals and ambitions, and suddenly finding that, those goals and ambitions may never come to fruition at this stage, or they're being sidestepped, or they're being overlooked, or they're being passed over. And they might find that there's a lot of presenteeism at work. They're present, but they're not there.
Mm.
So when you look at that melting pot of activity or lack of activity, that's an emotional kind of minefield. And some people will actually get through it quite, they get through it through supports that they might have. Like if you play golf or if you play rugby or if you go to sports or you go to the bar and you've got a good group of friends, you'll talk about, geez, I'm having a shit time, or, things are tough at home, and you'll get, you'd have what they call the barroom lawyers advice. But as a nation, we've actually, going to the pub has been a place where we put the world to wrongs and rights again. And the same with going to the clubs. You'd have that conversation about how tough things are, and then you go home thinking, God, he has it worse than me. I don't have it that bad. Or Jesus, look what he's living with. And it's sometimes seeing that other people's world, sometimes the grass is actually gone on their side, and at least you still have grass going in yours. That's helpful. And as a nation, I think that's how we've always dealt with things.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
And I think actually since COVID, there has been a huge upset, because we didn't have that network. We didn't have that support. We found people that used to go to, if you followed a faith of any denomination, you weren't going to your church, or you weren't following your faith because you weren't allowed to. You weren't going to the clubs because they were closed. You weren't going to the pub because it wasn't allowed. And a lot of people suffered really badly during that time. And since that time, it still hasn't fully recovered. Now, we're probably getting into a better space where that's concerned at this point. But there's a huge there was a huge body of time there where people literally had no one at all, and relied on being online, relied on Mr. Google. And Mr. Google, as good as Mr. Google can be sometimes, he can also be very dangerous. Relationships were not used to being together 24 hours a day, so they broke up. You might very much have married somebody and find that you're going out to work, you've got all the activities. If there are kids involved, you've got all of their activities. So Monday to Friday, generally, you were literally running around and living, but living your clock, their clock, and everybody else's clock. So when it came to a weekend, you either collapsed on Friday or you organized to go out on Saturday. Sunday was your rest day, getting ready for Monday. So you really didn't spend a lot of time with anyone. And when COVID hit, they suddenly were together 24 hours a day and discovered that they didn't know how to live together. They didn't actually know each other. So there was a huge issue all around that, and we're still seeing some of the effects of that. A lot of relationships did break up, and then you've new relationships, the stresses and strains that brings. So there's been a huge learning curve over the last few years that have, I suppose, brought to the surface things like the menopause and having support in the workplace. And now the menopause, and suddenly seeing there actually is a reason why I feel like crap. There is a reason why I can't concentrate. There is a reason why my libido is suddenly taking a nosedive. And it's not your person, and it's not your relationship, and it's actually more than that. It's actually a medical thing that easily can be helped and resolved. And I think that's the importance of what we're doing, and the importance of a podcast like this is that we're creating that awareness that the help that's out there literally can save lives, and it can certainly improve lives. And information is power. Being able to take control of what's going on in your life is huge. And, when you feel that everything is out of control, finding a way to take back some of that control, and to find that you're starting to feel better, you're sleeping better, you're losing weight, you feel healthier, emotionally, you're able to deal with the challenges that life will throw at you. And it's all of those little steps and strategies that help us to have a better life.
Yeah, just to your note, I want to encourage people to share this podcast with that fella that may benefit from this conversation. Comments, questions, don't be shy. We are here, we are very open. So if you want to address something, we will pick it along the way. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure to do it because that will help this stuff being distributed in the YouTube sphere. I want to pick on another thing you just mentioned, the socials when people are on the pub. How much does that matter for our mental health, for for ourselves, for our development, and all that? And I want to invite to other thing you mentioned, which was COVID. So since COVID, many pubs have closed, which is sad, for the Irish landscape as such, because it's part of your heritage, your history. I mean, you yourselves as a nation, and as you just referred and highlighted, pubs are crucial for people's engagements and interactions. Now, there is also a lot of alcohol involved, which is not always good. So I would like to get your thoughts on these. Like, pubs are not as popular as they were. I think there is also an element of the new generations that I would like you to get into. And but there is also a lot of alcohol around those conversations, which not always lead people to the in the good direction, but they also, on the other hand, they also help to open up when they struggle. So I know I put a lot on the table, but if you can go through that, that would be great.
Alcohol is it is a poison. At the end of the day, it's a substance that we're putting into our bodies that's not very good for us. However, culturally, it was the pub or the clubs that we went to where we communicated what was going on in our community, where if so and so down the road was sick, you were guaranteed somebody was going to be down there the next day to sort it out. If somebody died, you had the whole community came together and they went and they supported the family and they made sure that they were fed and looked after during times of extreme stress. If there was serious illness, it was neighbors looking after neighbors. I'm not, I suppose nobody really is a fan of, alcohol taking precedence over everything, and anything in moderation can be helpful at the end of the day. But it's not about the alcohol, really. It's about the humanity. It's about the communication. It's about the interaction. The alcohol just happens to be there because that's the place where we congregated. But the same could happen outside a church. The same happens if we go to a football match or a hurling game, or if you go to rugby, or if you're going out and playing golf and you're, the 18th hole. It's not always just about the sport. It's about the communication and the interaction that we have with people with similar likes and interests that we have. And when we took that away, there was a massive vacuum. And that vacuum needed to be filled. And I suspect, and from various reports that I would have read, and I think would be very widely available, is there was a lot more alcohol drunk at home than was ever drunk in a pub. So again, there are some cafes now that open up a bit later to have drink-free zones. And it would be fantastic if there could be more of those. It would take some changes in our cultural norms to embrace that, because it wouldn't have been considered to be normal. But, there are new normals arriving all day, every day. Since COVID, we're living in a changed world, and it's not all bad. So again, people that have difficulty with alcohol won't go to a pub, because if you're going to AA meetings, that's not a place where you want to be meeting. But there are support groups for all sorts of concerns that people have. And once we know where to ask for help and where to go for help for all of the different things that affect us in our life, then that's one way of addressing how people move from one stage in their life to the next stage.
Yeah,
So no,
I think
we need to avoid alcohol as much as we can.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it can be quite dangerous, and most people are not aware of what they are doing with it. But I think, on a wider sense, there's a community crisis. Like, pubs are not as popular as they were. Churches are empty, so people struggle to find someone to talk to. And they end up on those WhatsApp groups, which, yes, they have a benefit. Maybe they even WhatsApp groups, they save someone's life at this point, because they could reach out just using their fingers, and they didn't have to get out and look for someone on the street or on a social sphere. But there are also concerns around AI, I think, because there's more and more kind of digital robots that can provide you with entertainment, and we rely on them, but we don't know exactly if they'll be there all the time. Because if it's a human that you can be sure that the person is there for you based on what you know about him or her. But with AI, it's very much unpredictable, especially because we are at early stages of this sort of technology.
AI is something that scares me a little bit, because you could be talking to what looks like a human person with a human voice who's not human. And there is a difficulty then understanding, what's real and what's fiction. What they're actually saying. Is it factual? Is it, where's this information coming from? And how is this information appropriate for where you are, what you're going through, what advice you need, what supports you need. And I've heard certainly of people being catfished by something that's not real at all, and forming emotional attachments online. Yes. Because quite simply, there's no physical attachments where they are. And that's, psychologically, that can be very challenging to realize that you've formed an attachment with a computer. We need other humans, and we need to have other human interactions. That's how we are, and that's how I suppose we form bases of security and information and support and knowledge. And you want to be able to wake up and go outside your door based on the fact that whatever somebody has told you is actually real.
Yes.
That you're not, you're not being caught either financially, because there's so many scams as well, of course. And that just adds to the various stresses that our people are going through. So if you're emotionally being drawn on so many different fronts, you could be more vulnerable to being caught out on something that's not real. And in other circumstances that would never have happened to you, you'd have been much more aware of that not being possibly a truth or a fact. And there's so many people saying, we've got all these fact finders, and sometimes I wonder who the fact finders are, because if something is based in science, it either is or it isn't. There's no there's no black and white. It either is or it isn't. And when you've got people saying, yes, it's based on science, but that's not right, and you're kind of going, where are you going to go with that information?
Yes, yeah, especially when they come up with science and the science cannot be questioned, which by default it's the nature of science, because science has been evolved, and that's what we want. Because if science cannot be questioned, we'll still be in the Stone Age.
Totally. I mean, it's very simple. If we start looking at kind of our physical health and energy, if we start the day with water, we know we're going to be more hydrated. That actually kickstarts our metabolism. If we eat a protein-rich breakfast, then that's going to start stabilizing our energy and supporting muscle mass. If we include things like omega-3, we know that that's good for brain health, and I think that's heart health as well. So sugar, of course, is a poison, but it's something that if we can start to limit that, then we can start to reduce things like insulin resistance, which helps to address things like weight loss. Then other things like our sleep hygiene. Sleep is so important. Having good quality sleep helps us to mend, because our body heals during the night, and we kickstart everything during the night while we're asleep. And then simple things like, again, going back to the alcohol can actually affect us not being able to sleep. It can worsen things like our mood swings, or even fatigue, because we're not sleeping properly. If you're dehydrated because you've taken alcohol, then it has a compound effect. So, and they're facts, how we distinguish now between an actual fact and somebody's idea of what a fact is becoming maybe a small bit more of an issue because of social media, different impacts on social media.
Do you have any prescription for a man, let's say in his 40s, to use social media? Any sorts of best practice?
That's not really my area of expertise, I would have to admit. From a realistic or an experience perspective, what I would say is, all of us are going to go into social media, and we call it death scrolling. We waste so much of our life just death scrolling because we're living other people's lives, and we think just, social media is a very false environment. You get snapshots of people's lives which are not real. Like, we could all walk out the door now and take a phone in our hand and go down in front of a bar and take a picture, and you think, oh my gosh, she's out again, or he's out again, and they're partying. They might have their pajama legs on, and they might have just walked outside the pub and gone back in, and they might not talk to anybody from Monday to Friday. So it's not real. We've got to keep in our, keep perspective that just because something is up on social media doesn't mean that that's the way somebody actually is living. It's not a true reflection of an actual life. It's a snapshot of a moment. And we make opinions and views based on the moments that we see that are up on social media. It's not real life. Real life is messy. Real life means you have to do the washing, you have to do the cleaning. If you've got kids, you're the chauffeur, the doctor, the psychiatrist, you're the nurse, you're the chef, you're everything. It's also, you might have a fight of a morning, so you've got arguments going on, and then you've got fixing up the arguments afterwards to sort out. You're going to work, you have to put petrol in the car. You don't see that on social media. You don't see that you have to get down and you have to clean the toilet. You're not seeing you have to go to shop and buy your products for your personal hygiene and make sure that you're stocked with toilet roll or toothpaste or mouthwash or, everyday living requirements are not what we see on social media. So you might see somebody in the gym pumping iron, and 2 minutes later, they've already walked outside the door because they've done nothing else. It's not necessarily real. It's very totally.
Let's get into real things, as you just referred. I would like to understand your entrepreneurship venture. So what are the main beauties and challenges of running your own business?
It takes a lot of work, a lot of energy. It's not glamorous. The best parts of what I do is I actually like human beings. I like being with them. I like helping them to feel better, to look better. I enjoy conversation. I could talk the hind legs off the lamb of God and come back for the tail. And I really enjoy that. The other side is also true. You've still got to deal with all of the bills. You've got to deal with the social media. You've got to deal with communicating what you do with other people so they actually get to know what you're doing. You're putting in a lot of hard work. So I'm in the salon most days I start at 7 a.m, finish at 7 p.m. We're by appointment only. So if I don't have an appointment, I'm not there. If I'm going to a school, it means that day has to be blocked out. If I'm going to one of the Ferogas or the youth clubs or the IRDs, they take time out of the salon time. So they're kind of booked time. So there's a lot in the background. You have a lot of planning. Certainly, I suppose I don't sit still for too long. I always need to be doing something. Now I've kind of published a few books over the last few years. So I'm actually taking a break from doing that at the moment, and just filling that time looking at how to get this menopause information or the Empower Youth information out to our young people and our more mature people. And it's, my mission really is to try and help other people to feel better in their lives. And if it can lift your spirits on any given day, that's a good job. That's my purpose. That's actually what gets me up in the morning, and that's what keeps me happy at night.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think that has to be in each and every of our actions, even if there are small gestures, say in our day to day. If that intent is there, chances are that we are going to do it in a proper manner, because there is a clear intent of reaching out to someone, improving their lives, showing them something that they are not aware of, and and we will feel well about it, because we can see the impact, the consequences happening in front of us, and it's just it's a life changing. I think not just for the person you are helping, but also for yourself, because if, as you said, if you are aware, if you are present, if you are perceiving what's happening, then it's impossible not to feel better when someone is feeling better.
Yeah, true. And I think as humans, sometimes one of the saddest things that we have as we get older is we feel that we're not seen anymore. We're not as our vitality has changed, our energy levels have changed. And you can see older people walking down the street, and they're not walking proud. They're not walking tall or straight.
Yes.
Sometimes you see them walking quite bowed over, or even looking at the ground, rarely looking up, almost like they're disappearing. And I purposely then, if I see something like that happen, because I know a smile can change somebody's life. If you're feeling down the doldrums and somebody smiles at you, and it's like, oh, they see me. I'm not invisible. I'm a person, and they see me. Now, a lot of this is the whole psychology thing and the whole psychotherapy side of things. But it's really powerful. A smile, quite literally, can show somebody that they're not forgotten, they're not invisible, they are being seen. And if somebody is having a conversation, whether it's at the checkout in Tesco's or Dunn's or Lidl's or wherever you'd like to do your shopping, those people are sometimes our little lifesavers without even knowing it, because they have that conversation with the customers. They're acknowledging them, they're taking their money, and they say, if it's a small community, now sometimes when we go to the bigger towns, we become a little bit more invisible again, because in the movement of humans, it's almost like we don't see each other. You're just moving. Whereas in smaller communities, we will know each other, whether the shops you go to, or like when you go to your barber, or you go to your hairstylist, or they will know you. They see you. The conversation is with you. They're acknowledging your life and what your experiences. That's what it means to be human.
Yeah.
But I suppose my personal thing is, if you can't be kind, be nothing. Just be kind. That's all you have to do, is be kind.
Yeah, that's very interesting what you just mentioned, because I was thinking we all enjoy being recognized. It's a sort of reward, that someone notices our presence, someone realizes that we are there. As you just referred, it's very disheartening to be invisible. We all want to be present, and someone will acknowledge that we are there. It's very frustrating to pass by and don't have any impact. Of course, it's not about vanity or being on the spot, but we want to be seen as we are, as individuals, human beings, and there is value in it. There is value on being around and be able to have a conversation. If someone takes the time to acknowledge, that you are there and you matter, that can change not only that moment, but sometimes the whole day. Like you can even sleep better if someone took the time to talk to you for 2 minutes at 10 a.m. That can change the same night, and it's incredible. Like those 2 minutes can change a whole night of sleep.
Completely. Do you know, it's such a wonderful experience to be speaking with people that are older, that have lived life, because I'd often hear the expression, when you look in the mirror, you don't see you. You see who you were. You see who you are. You don't see the aged person, because inside you're still young. And the stories that they can share, and I find I'm getting to the age now where I'm starting to do this as well. I remember I work in Douglas, so I remember Douglas very differently when I was a much younger person. A lot of things that were not there are there now, and what it was like without them. And when you have an older person sharing their life skills, it's absolutely incredible. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's been there for a very, very long time. Hearing other people's experience of how they've done things teaches us how to do things much more quickly. You don't have to go and furrow the land just to get to a destination. Talk to the people who've taken that journey and follow their footsteps. That journey becomes so much easier. It's actually incredible. It's the same, I think we find now in different workplaces, automation has taken over quite a lot of what's been going on. I still prefer to speak to a teller in the bank. I don't like to use the hole in the wall. When I go to any of the supermarkets that I would go to, I go to the cash registers where there's a human there. I don't want to be sticking money into a gadget. I don't like it. I don't want it. I like that whole human interaction, and that, validating that people are around. And I think we're losing a lot of that interaction generally. You get these phone calls and you might be talking to somebody in Timbuktu or wherever in the world it might be, and they don't have conversations with you anymore. It's all business.
Yes.
What number, what this, and it's a structure. It's like a script. And unless you complete the script in the way that they want it, there's nothing else going on. It's not like you could phone up the ESB years ago and say, there's a fault in the line there, what's going on? And they would tell you. And now you're going into this automated thing. And I'm not just picking the ESB on purpose, but if you kind of get the gist of what that is.
Yeah.
The human touch. When the human touch is huge. If you go into a clothes shop, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. If actually men probably have less people helping them than the women do in the changing rooms. But there are some great outfitters inside in the city where you can actually go in and they'll talk to you about your style, and they'll talk to you, particularly if you've got an event coming up, what kind of look would you like? And I'll do the same for the guys if they have weddings coming up, and say, what kind of a wedding are you going to have? What style are you going for? Because we can match the facial hairstyling or the hairstyling in keeping with the overall style of the wedding. If it's very relaxed or if it's a bit more formal, we might have a style just for the wedding and then go back to normal afterwards. Because the whole thing is, those photographs are for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Having the latest fad might not be the best look for your wedding. But there are some great places that you can go in and have that conversation. And again, it's like, who do I ask for that? Where do I go for this help? Where do I get this information? And like your local barbers, great for doing that. The shopkeepers, great for information. Even things like going to the local credit union or the local bank, and if you're having a chat with the person that's inside there, they will know what's going on around their locality and beyond. And they can share, well, such and such a customer has said, if you go here, that's what they do. And you're kind of going, yeah, I might go and do that now, because we work on the basis of referrals. And I think that comes back to the business side of things as well. A lot of marketing now is all about social media. My experience is my business has never grown from social media. My business has grown from word of mouth. It's grown from the experience of the person in the chair talking to the friend and the family, and that being fed around. That's how a lot of businesses still grow or don't grow, as the case may be.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
I think that's not a bad sign, because those recommendations, they are real. They are
absolutely.
based on empirical knowledge. They don't come out of some ad they saw on Instagram or some other stuff they spotted on the internet. It's the person's experience, and person's experience, it's 100% correct, because that's what the person went through. So it's not something twisted on the internet. It's something that you felt on your skin, on your head, sometimes even on your heart. But I was just thinking about that topic of human touch, and how much does that matter. Let's say, even if you were to pick a pub, Guinness or Beamish, in case of Cork, is Beamish. Some people pour it better than others, but I
That's
like to
true.
go to a pub. I like to go to a pub where the barman is open for a chat. Say you are ordering a pint of Beamish, and it needs to settle, to take some time to get it ready. So it's like, I don't know, 2, 3, 5 minutes. And why not have a chat with that fellow while you wait for the Beamish, unless he's busy preparing a cocktail for another customer. So for me, it makes a difference. Sometimes I go to certain pubs just because I can talk to the person that is at the bar. It's important. It matters a lot, because food won't be that difference, the different. The drink won't be that different, but the person, it's always another monster. You never know what kind of people it's there, and if it's someone you can talk to, 100% will be a priority for me. So, hats off for people who take the time to engage with the clients and to have a decent conversation. And sometimes they can even provide, as I said, some local hints. Or, let's say you need to get your hair done. You can go next street. You need to get to the seaside. The quickest way is if you turn left and then go straight, you'll get the beach in just 2 minutes. You don't need to go around, and it's important, and it's something that they don't have to do, but if they do it, that means they do it from heart, that they care, and they are trying to improve your experience. So I really like when people run the extra mile. It tells a lot about their ethics.
Absolutely. And I suppose when you look at that then on a serious note, and again, coming back to the whole experience that guys have going through the menopause, knowing where to get help. Help will come in different opportunities or different directions. So the first port of call for anything to do with health is also always going to be your medical referee, whether that's the doctor or the practice nurse. They're your first port of call. If you're feeling down, if you're feeling different, if you're feeling things are out of control, need to get the bloods done, need to get the blood pressure sorted out, need to get the cholesterol test, need to get the prostate test. That's where you get your medical advice. Medical advice should only be from medical people, not from Mr. Google and Mr. God knows what on the internet. That's the first place for help. Other places for help, if you have a faith, your chaplain, your priest, or whomever is involved in your prayer system, they're wonderful people for giving advice and support. Absolutely amazing people. If you're in a workplace where you do have an employee assistance program and you have a HR department, great for offering help and support and advice in those types of environment, particularly if you're struggling. Other areas are going to be the helplines, whether it's Pieta House, whether it's I've been a member of Movember for many years because they deal with men's cancers and men's mental health and suicide awareness. They've got helplines. There are people at the end of those lines waiting to help. All they've got to do is pick up the phone and make the call. It's always very private. They're not going to discuss it with anybody else. Your best friend. Now, there are things you may not want to share with your best friend that you might very well share with a stranger over a phone. But sharing with your friend, because a problem shared is a problem halved. So having those conversations with your friend group and normalizing the conversation about how you're feeling and what's going on, and Did you know that there's such a thing called menopause? Did you know that the beer belly might actually be a hormonal belly? Did you know that your libido might be dropping because your hormones are out of whack? Simple information sharing can lead to having answers that actually change things. So the helplines are great for doing that. There are people in the community, if you only open your mouth and ask, do you know where such and such might be? They will help. Actually, talking to anybody and asking for help, most humans will operate from a good perspective and will say, oh, did you think about going X, Y, and Z? Or have you thought about whatever? But going to a professional person and asking for their support or guidance or direction as to where they should go for the type of help that they need, that's really the key to all of this. Having the information, knowing what to do with the information, getting help if that information is directing you into that particular way of needing additional support. So whether it's going to be going to your local gym and asking for a fitness thing, going to a dietitian and looking for a diet, going to a psychotherapist or a counselor to help for emotional and psychological help, going to your GP for your medical supports, they're all there. They're actually all there. We just don't know how to ask for help.
Yeah.
And there is, we're not good at that. And men are not overly good at that either. You know, there's the fear of being judged, a fear of being seen as less than, of not being manly enough, of losing face. You know, they're not important in the bigger scheme of things, because it's much more important that you're going to feel happy.
Yeah.
And it's much more important that you feel healthy. And it's much more important that you feel joy in your life. And if you're struggling, that somebody can help to support you through that struggle, so that that burden is lifted off your shoulder and you don't have to carry it on your own. Even understanding how to communicate with your family, your friends, your work colleagues. You know, when you're struggling, that challenge could be even more than normally. So, you know, those small steps make that difference.
Yeah, perhaps we need help on how to ask for help. It's interesting.
That's
we talk about the dialogue, and I was thinking of Plato, you know, the Greek philosopher, and he also prescribed dialogue as a great method to transmit ideas, to share knowledge, to provide some insights to other individuals, and uses that system for his own book. So dialogue has been around the block for quite some time. Even Plato used that himself back in his days. But talking of books, would you let us know what are you working on at the moment? I also share what you wrote in the past and published.
Well, I've published a few bits and pieces now. I suppose appropriate to what we're talking about, I actually have a book about menopause. It's called Manopause, Male Midlife Crisis, Male Menopause, and Andropause. And that's available on Amazon. There's other books like Fatherhood, The Next Chapter. I've journaling for men that are going through the menopause. I've other books. I have other books then around. I teach barbers, so I've formulated a whole training system for barber tutor educators and for barber students, and those programs, actually, even including the menopause, they've all been CPD accredited. So they've all been independently assessed, and they've all received their accreditation through the whole CPD process. And the other program that I'm really passionate about, because if we don't educate our young people now, then we lose the opportunity to close the gap on what we need to address. So Empower Youth is a program where I go to schools or youth clubs or anything where there's young people from about the age of 12 and upwards. And we tell them about the menopause, and we tell them about the menopause. We educate them about personal hygiene, foot care, facial hairstyling, hair care, nail care, skin care. We go down to the whole cancer awareness, oral hygiene. Literally, we assume that the school are going to teach these things to our children. And the school assumes the parents are going to do these things with our children. And there are situations where that does not happen. And it may be that some parents may not have the skills or the confidence to share personal information with their children. And, so there's a gap there. And from there, I designed the whole Empower Youth, the Essential Life Skills program. And again, it's creating awareness that mental health is every single bit as important as your physical health, your emotional health, your psychological health, the steps you can take whether you're going to do breath work to help to bring down your emotional level. Again, we spoke there very briefly about mindfulness, how you use mindfulness, whether you're mindful eating, mindful walking, whether you're going to enjoy journaling. Not everybody likes journaling, but for some people, it's a really positive way of writing down what goes on a daily basis. Because just by getting that information out can actually just help to deal with things. And then you can go back and see improvements or decline over a period of time. And that will lead you then to what the next steps might be. So if you see a pattern of positive results, then you're going to continue with that pattern. If you see a pattern where the results are not quite so positive, then you're going to understand that you need to change what you're doing to lead to something that's more positive.
Yeah, that's exactly. Sorry to cut you off. That's exactly what I was thinking here. The benefits of realizing if you are going on the good or right or wrong direction. I think if you're going in the wrong direction, it's obvious that you need to address what you are not getting it right. So the sooner the better, because if you fix it, chances are that you're not going to repeat the mistake, or at least it won't be as bad as it is now. So that's one. The other one, I think, is if you are taking correct choices, then you get a positive emotion because you're going to feel well about it. You're going to celebrate and you're going to feel empowered, and that will be reflected in your interactions going forward, because you're going to show up in a very confident manner, and perhaps getting into other situations, building your network, just by being positive and being someone that others want to be around. So there's always a benefit of realizing where are you at the moment to understand where should you go next.
It's also very important to not have regrets. Quite often you'd say, oh, if I had my time over again, I would do X, Y, and Z. It is really important to acknowledge and appreciate that whatever decisions and choices you make for the right reason at that time. So you have got to own that you made the right decision at that time. Hindsight is wonderful. Like if we all worked on the basis of hindsight, we wouldn't do half the things we were doing.
Yeah.
But by acknowledging and accepting that the decision was made for the right reason at that time, own it, and then you can move on from there. So once you acknowledge that you have to own your decision, it allows you the freedom to move on instead of living from a perspective of regret. You can always change. You can only live in now. Once the past is gone, it's finished. It's over. It can't ever be repeated because it's gone. We can't actually live in the future because it hasn't happened yet. We can only be present in the now. We can learn from our experience and make decisions as to how we're going to move forward. But we can neither live behind us or in front of us. We can only live for now. So if for this moment and this time, we make the right decision for this moment and this time, and we accept and we acknowledge and we own it, it makes every step forward much easier to take. Does that make sense?
That's powerful. No, I was just processing it myself. That's why I was quiet, which does happen too often. But this time I had to just digest, because there's a lot of information there, and there's so much value that I had to reflect as I was listening to you. I want to understand more, talking about future. I know it's hard to, because none of us have a crystal ball. But how would you like to project the men's well-being in Ireland, say in 2030? How would that look like? I think you are a bit critical of the educational system. So what kind of changes would you like to see being implemented?
As part of any health system going forward, whether you're going through VHI or LEA or any of the private healthcares, that they would incorporate and include information and support that includes the essential life skills or the menopause, that every employer, as part of their onboarding and their company handbooks, that they incorporate and include supports for people going through either the menopause or the menopause. That there's a lot more awareness and education for the medical system and the support systems, again, around both of these areas. And vitally, that every man and every woman are aware of what life changes might happen at what time. And if they start to see those things happen, that they know where to go for help and how to ask for help and actually get the help, so that we improve that transition period. So it's not as challenging or as difficult, and we have opened the lines of communication, and we understand that our partners may have a difficult day, so we can support them. So we build our relationships, we strengthen relationships, we prevent the breakdowns, we provide the mental health support, we provide the physical health supports, the medical health supports. That allows us then to transition into the next chapter, the next stage of our lives, which are so powerful. They, like, we actually step into ourselves. We don't have the whole challenge of what it is from when you're younger and you've got goals and ambitions and you're struggling and you're striving and you're aiming for things and stuff that you want. And you arrive at a point, you still have dreams and goals, because nobody can exist without a dream or a goal. We have all of those things, but we have it in a different light. And we can reflect and we can support people coming up behind us, and so that their experience can be as positive as the ones that hopefully we're going to have. I'm very fortunate that, thankfully, I've actually gone through the whole menopause. I think it's absolutely wonderful. Life is so much better now, as far as I'm concerned. And I want everybody else to have that experience. I want everyone to have support during that transition, to arrive at the next chapter and to feel the validation and to feel the acknowledgement and the acceptance and the growth that you can do from now. The positive things you can do from now, from this point forward, is you can't actually appreciate it until you get to it. And when you get to it, you should be sharing it with everybody else to say, there is life after. And it's actually great. It's wonderful. And you're talking from, I suppose I have a toolkit of skills that I've accumulated. And I'm enjoying using all of those tools now. So I suppose this is my moment of truth, and I'm standing in my truth, and I'm wanting to share it with everybody. So that's why I've developed what I've developed, because I've seen gaps in the system, gaps in the supports, and gaps in the networks. And just by trying to fill these little gaps, hopefully that will make a difference.
Yeah. Yes, the skills are for sure essential. Your motivation levels also matter. So if you want to make it happen, in the right way. But I think the other one that we cannot neglect is decision making. I think most people have a good life if they made the right decisions. It's essential, and also the people you have around you. But one that is not very much spoken, I think, is decisions. You need to be very good at deciding what you want by knowing who you are and what you want to make out of your life. So there's a lot of self-knowledge about it. There's a lot of planning, understanding of what you want to do with yourself, and because without that you cannot make a wise decision. And I think yourself as an entrepreneur, you can relate to that, because without being able to take decisions, face risks, and accept that you are not always aware of the results of your actions, and sometimes you need to step back and restart, you can never grow your business and yourself as a woman.
True. Do you know, I actually really genuinely don't think there's any such thing as a bad decision. I think there's a learning experience, but when you use the word bad, it has a different connotation. There are certainly things that if I had known the outcome, I would have done differently. But you can't work from that perspective, because none of us have that gift. Well, I don't have that gift anyway. I'm not too sure if there are too many people out there with that gift. So there are no such things as bad decisions. There are actually no such things as failures. They're experiences that allow you room to change what you're doing and how you do things. Yes, there is negative, and you're going to have negative Nellies around you all the time telling you not to do stuff. But you've got to live in your own truth, and you've got to walk your own path. And there's nobody can walk your path except you. So just by allowing the freedom to make wrong moves or different moves, or moves that perhaps were not the most advisable or well thought out, that's a learning curve. And everything we learn today, every step we take today, is only the foundation of tomorrow. So if today you feel that you didn't do as well as you should have, or that you have failed, or that you have perhaps not made the best decision, tomorrow's a new day. You can change tomorrow. Acknowledge and accept and grow from what you've learned and move forward from there. So it's only a learning experience.
Yeah. I realized that most of the things that I achieved, I achieved because I failed in the past, or I was not totally sure, so I had to go in circles for some time. I didn't necessarily mess up, but I kind of felt that I was wasting my time. But in the end, I was not, because, as you said, I was just building those foundations, and that takes some time and effort, and and some strange moments, but they were necessary. So they were there for me to be where I am now. And when I look back, I realized, okay, it's great that I went through this. It's fantastic that I had to feel frustrated that day, or that weekend, or that week for that matter, because without it, I couldn't be where I am now. So I think that's great advice, because if you are going through some difficult periods, it must be for a reason, because you need to learn, you need to hit your head on the wall, because without it, then you would go nowhere. Can I just finish this conversation with a quick with Quickfire? Are you familiar with the game Quickfire or Rapid Fire?
No, but I'll go for it.
It's a funny one. Basically, I throw you a question, and you just need to answer it like in 10 seconds, but it's nothing major.
Okay.
And it should be fun. So the first one that I have here, I wrote it down because I don't want to forget that, is best self-care ritual under 10-year-old.
Water and soap.
Water and soap. I like that. Yeah. One book or podcast you recommend to men or women over 40?
Manopause.
Manopause. Whose author is that? That's you.
Me.
Yeah. we'll put on the description a link to your Amazon page. Next one, a cork spot you love for recharging.
Robert's Cove.
Robert's Cove.
Robert's Cove. It's a beach that I've been going to since I was only a little child, and when I have any stress or any strain, and it's a favorite spot for most of kind of my family members as well. So if I need to completely unwind, I'll just go to Robert's Cove and I'll walk along the cliff edge, and I'll walk along the beach, and I'll take the dogs with me, and it's just a place where I find peace.
Can't remember where is it. It rings a bell, but what part of Cork is that? It's I feel embarrassed to ask, but I have.
You drive all the way through Carrigaline out past. Do you know what? Now I do it all the time, and I can't even think of the names of the places. I almost do it unconsciously at this stage. Have you heard of Ringabella? I
did. Yes. Yeah.
You drive past that entrance towards Ringabella, and you go off the way out. I'm trying. There's loads of little beaches out there, actually, but that's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, just to that note, without. I mean, I don't want to divert from the Quickfire, but I want to highlight how good is the sea, how therapeutical is the sea smell, the sea sound, the sea, everything about the sea is just it's just healing. Like I live in Bray, I live 1 kilometer away from the water, and I cannot imagine being far from the sea at this stage because it's like a 10 minutes walk. So I like that I'm not exactly on the water, that I need to walk and start approaching the water. Of course, I would fancy to have this sea view and all that, but I also appreciate the idea that I'm approaching the water is arriving, we are starting to connect with each other, and I know some people like to swim, but I don't. I like the idea that I'm just facing the water, and there is this respect gap in the middle, if that makes sense.
It does completely. Now, as humans, our bodies are made up of 80% of water anyway, so we're very much guided by the movement of the moon and the water, and how that all kind of circulates around. I think that's why so many people find it peaceful to be close to be close to water. Yeah,
100%. I think I know the answer for that, but I don't know if you drink. Will be pint of Guinness or pint of Beamish?
Beamish.
Of course, yeah. I know.
Of course.
I don't know why I'm asking. That was too obvious. That was too obvious. Yeah. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a coffee bean. I love a cup of tea if I'm having something savory, but if I'm having something sweet, I prefer coffee. And
there is also something about the coffee smell. It is to me. I like the coffee smell. It's inspiring, isn't it?
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Final question. What's the best advice you've ever received that you want every man listening or hear?
You are better than no one. You are worse than no one. You're equal to all.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And that's a fantastic way to close this conversation. Look, I could be here another 2-3 hours. I think there are so many topics, but look, was so insightful, Anne Marie, that I can only thank you for providing me with your views on male health and related topics, and to make it even more fascinating, your Cork accent.
Thank you. Yeah, I've actually totally forgotten the fact that we're on a podcast and just having a conversation instead. That's a really good skill that you've had there now.
Yes.
It's wonderful. Yes, thank you.
That's what I want. I want these conversations to seem that we are just sitting at a table in a coffee shop, in the pub, and just talking to each other. And I hope people that are watching feel the same way, that this is not a show. This is more two people having a chat. And that's what you want.
Absolutely.
And I think Irish people are great on that, and I've tried to absorb that skill. So for those who enjoy the conversation, make sure to press the like button below. If they know someone who may benefit from the topics we went through here today, I'll be very thankful if you can share, because this was live, but it will stay available for the future, because the topics we discuss here, they are evergreen. They are not just for the current day. They may be of value and interest in 5, 10, 20 years. And if you haven't subscribed, please do it. Just press the subscribe button, because I want to get to 1,000 subscribers, hopefully this year or next year. So thank you very much, Anne Marie, and look, best of luck with your business and with your books. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Victor, and thank you very much. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Take care. Have a good evening. Bye.
All right.